What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Power Hour version of In the Huddle. Vinny Bonsignore, your host, along with Les Kekahuna from Embajador Tequila, my good friend, football expert.
No.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Dude, look at what he's watching. What are you with? The Polynesian Football Hall of Fame. Yeah. Trust me, Les knows his football. He's coached a lot of times in his life. I learn every time talking to you about football, and that's no lie. But we're back. We're going to be back this week. We're going to take a week off next week. I'm taking a vacation.
Going to Italy.
I am going to Italy. I'm looking forward to it.
Back to his homeland.
Exactly.
Yep.
Back to the homeland. I actually am going to be visiting some relatives when I'm back there, and that'll take us right to training camp. Perfect. Which starts right after I get back. Guys, can you believe?
Right there.
Training camp is, as of when we're taping this right now, 14 days away. 13 days away. So it's crazy. It kind of flew by. I love it, and I know Les is. I'm excited about the NFL season. I think this is a fascinating season for a lot of reasons.
Yep.
You know, when you think about it, last year COVID-19 kind of wrecked. It just hovered over everything. Everything from no off-season programs. Training camp was weird, crazy. Remember this last year at this time?
Uncertainty. There was a lot of
uncertainty, and we were talking about ramp-up periods. 10 days that you could practice in pad. It was crazy. How much better do you feel just going into a season that feels much more regular?
I'm super excited. You know, and you know, I'm happy too because you know, like your body. You know, when you train, you're an athlete. Your body is kind of like you know, it's programmed to understands that okay, now it's going to be practice pads and taking physical punishment, lifting, and all that stuff. And when you throw that off, that's why there's injuries. They really, I believe that.
And there were a lot of them.
Because the body's like not used to playing this later or earlier or whatnot.
Right.
And not preparing.
So before the show, Les and I were talking, and Les brought up Derek Carr.
Yeah.
And what he had said over last weekend, at the big golf tournament up in Lake Tahoe, beautiful Lake Tahoe. Oh my God!
I love going to.
Great scenery. Exactly. But why don't you set it up? What did Derek say, and what did it kind of caused a little bit of an uproar?
Yeah. So one of the things that he had mentioned was that how the Raiders were like 3 or 4 plays away from being 3 or 4 wins. And
an 11 or 12 win team.
Yeah. They could have been. They could have very well been like an 11-12 win season, right? So, I don't think I really don't think that was a bad statement. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Well, I was there, and I actually I agree with them, and I get it. Yes. There's a couple of reasons why I like what he said.
Yeah.
Number one, obviously, and Bill Parcells said this a long time ago. You are what your record says you are. The Raiders weren't ready to make those 3 or 4 plays needed to win 11 games. But that doesn't change the fact, Les, that they were literally 3 plays away, 3 defensive stops away against the Kansas City Chiefs with a minute 43 left when the offense leaves the field with the lead. The offense left the field with the lead against Miami with 19 seconds left in the game.
The no-look pass.
Right, Fitzpatrick, crazy play. And then also in overtime against the Chargers.
That's right.
All they needed to do, the offense gave the defense a lead. All the defense needed to do was make a stop, and the Raiders win 11 games. We get it, and I understand it, and it's the truth of the matter. They didn't make those plays, so they are an 8-win team last year.
Right.
But I don't think it's a bad thing to acknowledge if you're Derek Carr, the leader of the team, right? To say, hey, we're that close.
That's what I meant. Like he's a team captain, so when your team captain feels like, man, we were right there, and we could have very well been in the playoffs, it makes everyone else feel confident.
And what does that get everyone to focus in on? Making those plays.
And I think, you know what, like a lot of these other players that just returning from last season, I think they feel that way too. Like they gotta feel confident. They gotta feel good about some of the changes, and they gotta feel good that their quarterback feels that way.
Right. And I'll say this. I remember this time last year, Derek Carr wasn't talking about the Raiders going into the 2020 season, looking back at 2019 and saying, oh yeah, we were 3 plays away from being an 11-win team in 2019. That team was 100 plays away. They weren't that good. They were that far away from being an 11-win team. That's just the fact of the matter. Down the stretch of that season, they were getting blown out. They were losing games by big margins. It was a talent discrepancy. They just weren't that good. But I can honestly say that last year, even though they finished 8-8, and that's fully acknowledged, they were this close to winning 11 games. And I think it's okay and healthy, to be honest with you, to truly acknowledge that. It's not, and the uproar that it caused was everyone's like, oh, you can't say that, you're only an 8-win team, blah, 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 blah. And I get that. And somebody brought up to me on Twitter, a couple people, like, well, they were a couple plays from losing a couple games too, and against the Jets, and against the Chargers.
Right.
But the point is, they made the plays in those games. That's exactly what Derek Carr is saying. Hey, make the plays in those close situations. Yeah. We did in those 2 games, didn't in those other 3 games. That's why they didn't win 11.
And you know what? Like it's just it was even that's good that they were in that situation.
Wouldn't you rather be?
Yeah, I'd rather be in that situation. So rather than just being blown out and not even having a chance, they're really like 1 play away from winning 3 games.
From your experience, and to me this goes to whatever level you're coaching at. Being ready to make those plays, I know a lot of it has to do with talent, no question. The Raiders have addressed some of the talent in this season. But do you believe that, and do you think that there's also you have to learn to win those type of games?
Yeah.
You have to mature and grow into that.
And I mean, I know we're here talking about the Raiders, but if you look at like Tampa Bay, right? They had a good team. They just needed someone like Tom Brady to come in and teach them how to win. I just had a discussion with a friend, and he was telling me like, oh yeah, some of the greatest lessons people learn in some losses. I said, no one has ever been brought in to teach a team how to lose.
Right.
How it feels, the lessons you learn in losing. They bring in guys like Tom Brady to Tampa Bay, and look, they felt they had a good team too. Yeah. When they were like, look, we got a good young talented team. We just need a veteran to come in here. And I think Bruce Arians said that. Yeah. Like Tom Brady came here and teach them how to win. Right. And I think it's the same situation right here with the Raiders.
I agree.
And Godwin, right?
Well, and I'm glad I was just going to go there, Les. Yeah. And I think where that really helps too, in a number of ways. Number one, he's going to be the best pass rusher on the team. That's a dynamic that the Raiders need, right? But in addition to Unique Ngakoue, they go get Quickie Jefferson, they go get Solomon Thomas, they go get Darius Philon, they draft Malcolm Kuntz, all right, along the defensive line.
Right.
I think part of making those plays, even though, as we've said, it can be something that you learn, grow into, develop into, be a more mature team, but it's also having gas left in the tank in those late game situations when you absolutely have to have a play. Right. When you absolutely have to get it done, it's much easier to do that when you've had depth throughout the game.
That's right.
So that you can
at that moment
rely on your best players to have something
gas and some of their legs under them, right, to make the plays at the end down the stretch. And those 1 plays that you're talking about.
Because I think it gets overlooked quite a bit how physically taxing a game is, and when it gets down to you have to make it or you go home type of plays, it sure helps when you're more physically fit, when you have more left in the tank. And I think guys like Max Crosby, guys like Unique Ngakoue, guys like Cleve Farrell, because of the depth now that they've built along that defensive line, and it's important in those situations to be able to rush the passer and get to the quarterback.
I mean, not to put down any other players from last year, but I don't really think they had a captain on defense. Like, who was their captain? Like if you look at some of the teams, not some, all the teams that won, like just look at the 2 Super Bowl teams. You had KC, and their defensive leaders were Matthew, it seems like, and Jones up front, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then on the defensive side for Tampa Bay, they had the same. They had the defensive ends, and their middle back were white. So I don't think we had that guy. If you look at the past Super Bowl champions and even the Super Bowl losers, the runner-ups, they had a leader, and now I think with Ngakoue we do have that, right? That can rally the guys up.
It's interesting you should point that out. Sorry to cut you off, but he's acting that way.
Yeah, and that's another.
And what he's saying and how he's saying it, you can tell that he's like, okay, And I don't think that sometimes when a new player comes to a team, especially a veteran team, you need to be careful on how you wield your power. Like, nobody likes somebody that's going to come in there and start clubbing them over the head. Like, hey, you're the new guy here.
The new guy, right.
But I think that Unique's way and how he's been expressing himself I think the Raiders are cool with it because I think that young Raider defense needs somebody like that.
Because didn't they say that Crosby's working out with him, and right?
Yes, and Crosby, he looks like. First of all, he's in tremendous shape, but also getting a chance to watch him during OTAs, and not just how he was flying around the field, but this dude was talking the entire time, and going up to young players and saying, "Hey, this is how you do it," and it's like that's awesome, and that
wasn't there last year.
When it was hard. It was hard to get a read on that last year because of COVID-19. We didn't really get a chance to see a lot of that stuff, but I gotta believe, I'm just educated guess, no, it probably wasn't quite like that last year. I think that he's growing into that role. I saw, when I covered the Rams, when Andrew Whitworth came to the Rams on offense, what that meant, what a veteran player meant to a young offense. And he became kind of like a local, like a guy that guys wanted to talk to and listen to. And he also had a great way of doing it where he wasn't overbearing with it. He was very welcoming with it. And I'm here if you need me. I'll pull you aside, but it'll be in a nice way, not trying to be, not trying to overpower you or anything like that. And guys respond, and I think Unique's going to be the same way. And Casey Hayward.
What do you think is going to be that guy for our back end?
Casey Hayward.
Yeah,
absolutely. Casey Hayward. I think that a guy that's been there, done that. Yeah, he's been in the Pro Bowl. He understands Gus Bradley's system.
That's good. Then.
Yeah, and I think having a command of things.
So he's a starting quarterback. You see?
I'm pretty sure.
If he's going to be a leader, he's got to start.
Yeah, and that raises the question of what happens to David Arnett.
Right. Do you think they're going to move him into the slot position?
I've asked about that, and it was kind of lukewarm. It was kind of lukewarm in terms of. It seemed like there was some skepticism about that, so I wouldn't necessarily say that that's going to happen.
Not him. What do you think, based on what you saw
on the slot?
The OTAs, yeah.
In the slot, that's
great. Who do you think it'd probably be like?
That's a great question.
The 2 or 3 guys that's in the mix to start in that position.
Gus Bradley talked about Nevin Lawson, but he's going to be suspended the first 2 games of the year. So it opens the door for Amik Robertson, a second-year player from Louisiana Tech. The Raiders have really talked up not just the coaching staff, but other players. Nate Hobbs, a rookie from Illinois.
That's right. Yeah.
Hobbs. So I don't think, and I think what the Raiders are
big on him, right?
Yeah, they're big on him.
I saw some things and he really did well in OT.
Right. And I think guys getting into the paths where the physical aspect starts coming into play is going to really, somebody's going to differentiate themselves or separate themselves. But I wouldn't be surprised.
He said he looked really good.
Yeah. Hobbs was very much somebody that caught the eye, especially the veteran players. Like, who's this dude? Like all of a sudden somebody shows up, especially a young player, the way they act, the way they conduct themselves, the way they are in the cafeteria, in the weight room, in the meeting room. There's certain guys that catch the attention of veterans, and veterans are looking for that.
Yeah, that's what you need, man. Especially to make it, because they're gonna have to start cutting that roster down, right? And some of these guys gonna have to, they're gonna have to let go. So.
And if you're a veteran player, what are you looking for? Are you going to be able to help? Can I trust you?
Yeah.
That's because it ultimately comes down to that. So they've got a keen eye on the young guys. They're sizing them up. Alec Ingold, the Raiders fullback, told me when he was an undrafted free agent. Right. So
out of Wisconsin.
If you go back a couple of years ago to his rookie year. During OTAs, the rookie program, everything, and his whole philosophy and what he understood was happening is everybody's watching. Everyone's watching you, how you're interacting.
Every day's an interview, right? That's what they tell people. They say every day's an interview, man.
How you're interacting with your teammates, how you're conducting yourself in the weight room. Are you showing up on time? Are you falling asleep during the meetings, or are you locked in? Do you know your assignments? All that type of stuff. When you get on the field and you're messing up, not to say he wasn't. He took it really seriously.
Yeah, he was. So it might be a trivia question one day, right?
Yeah.
He's the very first Raider to ever score a touchdown in Allegiant Stadium.
He was. He'll always have that. He was pretty pumped up about that. I remember texting him during the weekend, dude.
He was the very first Raider to ever score a touchdown in Allegiant Stadium. That's pretty cool.
It is.
And he's a good guy, man.
Yeah.
He's really good. He's smart. You know, and it seems like he's a leader too.
He is
on
a leader.
offense, right? He might
Definitely
be. I mean, obviously he's got to be Carr, but I could see him as being kind of one of the co-captains of the offense. Right?
I agree.
He's very vocal.
He's
I remember,
vocal.
Practice and whatnot. I saw it.
Yeah, he's vocal.
So tell us maybe more about him. Like, what he?
Yeah, he's a guy that you know he really impressed the Raiders in the Senior Bowl going into the draft that year. And the Raiders coaching staff coached his team.
Oh wow.
There was a little bit of disappointment because he thought he was going to get drafted.
Right.
He was the best fullback in the draft in 2019, and went undrafted. And he was like, it was the worst day, you know. And but right after the draft, the Raiders call, and it was the best situation, honestly, because John Gruden loves fullbacks. He still uses the fullback.
I like that. You know, like a lot of teams, they went away from that.
Yeah.
You know, having a fullback. I like that.
Right. Exactly.
I'm glad they brought that.
And he's a guy that I went and hung out with him between the first and second year, and it was out in Madison, Wisconsin, Green Bay, Wisconsin, where he's from.
Right.
Bitterly cold, like it was freezing cold, and it was to watch him work out. All right, and what he was doing in the offseason to get better for his second year, and like we would be showing up at the facility that he worked at in Madison, Wisconsin. It was like raining and snowing and cold and 6 o'clock in the morning. You're like, what the hell, man? You know, like I'm tired, like you know, and he was just getting after it. And one of the things he was really focusing on was being a better athlete. Being a guy that, yes, he could run through guys, but he wanted to start making guys miss and being more of a factor in the pass game.
What kind of drills did you saw him doing?
A lot of agility. It was a lot of weight, a lot of very quick burst weight stuff.
Oh, good.
A lot of agility stuff. He did that box drill where you got to leap up onto the box. In fact, I tweeted it out right after because he cleared. It was like a personal record for him, and he was pretty pumped up. And I sent it out on video on Twitter, and everyone was like, all Raider fans were going nuts. But he wanted to improve his flexibility, his athleticism, just to be a better fullback. Obviously, fullback, you're going to be blocking, so strength, core strength was a big focus. And then making people miss, because John Gruden likes to throw to his fullbacks. And they were. And you know, that was a big loss. It kind of goes unnoticed a little bit. But when he broke his ribs against the Chargers in Los Angeles, it affected the rest of the season. Because they couldn't use him the way they normally do. He's one of the lead guys.
Man, that's how crazy it is, right? He still continued playing that game and the rest of the season like that.
In fact, remember we had lunch?
Yeah.
With him.
He never mentioned it once. You know,
well, we didn't. No, we did talk about it, and he was like, he was just starting to feel good.
Yeah.
Better.
Right.
And remember, that was a while away from. I mean, that was a month or so out of the season, right? And so.
You know. Okay.
Was that?